The invasion began on a quiet morning that was soon shattered by the thundering roar of alien ships breaking through the atmosphere they had been so accustomed to for centuries. Earth's skies were no longer their own. The first sign of the heat rush came when the sky turned dark and unnatural shapes blocked out the sun. They were massive ships, each one larger than any human-made vessel ever conceived. Their cold metallic hulls gleamed in the dawn light as they descended slowly, casting shadows over cities below. People screamed as the earth trembled underfoot. Cities that had stood for centuries crumbled in minutes, their once proud structures now nothing but rubble in the wake of a storm of fire and destruction. The air was filled with the smell of burning, as plumes of smoke rose from every direction as the first shots rang out, and buildings fell like dominoes into the streets. Sergeant Alex Reeves stood in the middle of the chaos. He was used to combat, used to the sound of gunfire and the weight of battle, but nothing could have prepared him for this. As the sound of explosions reverberated through the air, he could see the alien ships looming above, their dark forms like giants over a helpless world. He had heard rumors of extraterrestrial threats, but this was beyond any nightmare. The enemy was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Their weapons cut through human defenses like a hot knife through butter. Alex stood with his squad near the center of a shattered city. They had just taken shelter after a failed counterattack. The streets were filled with the wounded and the dead, their eyes wide with fear, their bodies crushed under the weight of the violence. Alex's heart was heavy, but his training kicked in without hesitation. He barked orders to his men, keeping them focused as their survival instincts took over. He wasn't just any soldier, though he was a seasoned veteran of countless battles. His mind, quick to assess the situation and adapt to new threats, his eyes scanned the streets, picking out the enemy's movements as alien creatures emerged from the wreckage, their forms unsettling to the human eye, long-limbed and insectoid. Their dark skin was covered in battle armor. The mere sight of them sent waves of fear through the civilians who dared to remain in the open. "Stay low and stay quiet," Alex ordered his men as he crouched behind an overturned car, trying to get a better view of the advancing enemy. The Yitrash were everywhere, their armored forms moving with unnatural precision. Their soldiers did not walk, but seemed to glide with a purpose, unlike any human army Alex had ever seen. A loud roar suddenly echoed from above, and Alex instinctively ducked. A massive Yitrash warship passed overhead, its engines glowing a sickly green as it released a barrage of weapons fire on the city below. The air was filled with the sound of crackling energy as beams of blue light streaked through the streets, obliterating anything in their path. "Hold your ground," Alex shouted as he scrambled to his feet, his men following his lead with military precision. They had been trained for moments like this, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer power of their alien adversaries. In the distance, Alex saw the unmistakable sight of a Yitrash warrior advancing toward them, its towering form looming as it methodically scanned the area, looking for survivors. Alex's instincts screamed to retreat, but he knew there was no time. He had to make a stand here and now, for the sake of those around him. Just as the Yitrash warrior stepped into the street, Alex's finger tightened on the trigger. His rifle crackled with energy as the first shot rang out, but the alien didn't flinch. The blast deflected harmlessly off its armor, leaving no mark. The creature's head turned slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto Alex's position. Alex's heart raced, his pulse hammering in his chest as he realized how futile his efforts were against this unstoppable force. Before he could react, the alien raised its arm and fired a beam of green energy that sliced through the air faster than any human eye could track. Alex dove to the side, barely escaping the deadly blast as it scorched the ground where he had been moments before. His squad scattered, taking cover behind whatever rubble they could find. The world around them felt like it was crashing down. The battle was hopeless. The enemy was too strong, too advanced. But in the chaos, something unexpected happened. A blur of movement caught Alex's attention, and he saw a figure darting across the street, a being unlike any he had seen before. Slender and agile with silver blue skin, it moved with fluid grace as it dodged Yitrash fire and made its way toward their position. Alex couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't human. The figure approached quickly, and with the speed of a predator leaped onto a nearby building in a single bound from its perch. It scanned the battlefield, its eyes glinting like stars. Then, without warning, it hurled a device toward the Yeet-Rush warrior. The device exploded in a blinding flash of light, and when the smoke cleared, the alien soldier was no longer standing. The creature had been obliterated in an instant. Alex and his squad were left speechless as they stared up at the newcomer, who now landed gracefully in front of them. The figure was taller than any human, but not as large as the Yeet-Rush warrior. It was lean, its movements were precise and calculated, but there was a strength in its demeanor, one that immediately commanded respect. Its eyes were not the cold, lifeless gaze of the Yeet-Rush, but a deep and thoughtful gaze that conveyed intelligence and purpose. "Who are you?" Alex demanded, his weapon still at the ready, though the figure had already shown its power. The being looked at him with a calm expression, and for a moment there was silence. It seemed as though the world had paused just for them. Before it spoke, its voice was smooth like velvet, yet carried an undeniable authority. "I am Ves Agzari," the being replied, its words echoing in the stillness of the battlefield. "I am not your enemy." Alex lowered his weapon, but his guard remained up. He didn't know whether to trust this stranger, but something about the way Ves had wiped out the Yeet-Rush warrior told him that this being might be an ally. "Why are you here?" Alex asked, his voice laced with suspicion, but also curiosity. "The Yeet-Rush are not the only invaders here," Ves said. "I fight against them because they have wronged my people as well. I come to offer my help in your struggle, but I cannot do it alone." Alex felt a surge of hope rise in him against the odds. Maybe there was a way to turn the tide. Maybe Earth's resistance had found a new ally in a war that seemed unwinnable. He looked into Ves's eyes and saw determination, the same kind he had felt when he first picked up a rifle to defend his home. "What do you need?" Alex asked, stepping forward, ready to listen. Ves nodded, a quiet resolve in its eyes. "I need your trust. I need you to fight with me. Together we can defeat them, but it will take everything we have." Alex stood still for a moment, weighing the decision before him. The city around them was in ruins. The cries of the wounded and dying filled the air, and the smell of burning was everywhere. He had seen the strength of the Yeet-Rush firsthand. Their power was unimaginable. And yet here was this strange being, a new ally, offering a way forward, a chance to fight back. With every fiber of his being, Alex wanted to believe. But trust had to be earned, not given freely. He knew better than to place faith in something so unknown. "How do we even begin to fight back?" Alex asked, finally breaking the silence, his voice strained with uncertainty. Ves's eyes gleamed with a knowing glint. "We start by disabling their most crucial asset, their neural link system. Without it, their soldiers lose their coordination. Their war machine becomes disorganized. That is our chance to strike. But the system is located deep within their mothership, orbiting above us. It is heavily guarded and difficult to access. But if we can reach it, we have a real chance to turn the tide." Alex's mind raced. The mothership, the very heart of the Yeet-Rush invasion, hovering over their world. It was a daunting target, one that seemed almost impossible to breach. But Ves was right. Without their neural system, the Yeet-Rush would be vulnerable. A disorganized force could be overwhelmed, and Earth might stand a chance. For the first time in days, Alex felt a spark of hope ignite within him. "So we get to the mothership and disable their system," Alex said. "And you're sure this will work?" Ves nodded. "I've seen it done before, but never on this scale. The Yeet-Rush are ruthless, and their security is unlike anything you've ever encountered. But we can't win without taking that risk. It is the only way." The soldier took a deep breath, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. But there was no turning back now, not when humanity's last hope rested in their hands. "We're with you," Alex said to his squad, who had been listening intently. "Whatever it takes." Ves's lips curled into what could be considered a smile. "Good, then we move quickly and quietly. We don't have much time before the Yeet-Rush realize we're here." The team began to gather their gear and prepare for the mission ahead. There was no turning back now. But even as they readied themselves, Alex couldn't shake the nagging feeling that they were walking into the heart of enemy territory, to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. As the group moved through the ruined city toward their transport, Alex found himself reflecting on the strange turn of events. that had led them here from the first wave of the Yeet invasion to the sudden arrival of Vess, and now this dangerous mission to infiltrate the mothership. It was hard to believe that this was the same world he had known before, but now there was no time for doubt. They had to act quickly or Earth would fall. With Vess leading the way, they made their way to an underground bunker, where a small fleet of modified human craft awaited them, ready to take them on their dangerous journey to the mothership. Alex and his squad climbed into the vehicles and strapped in for the flight ahead. The tension was thick in the air as they lifted off into the unknown. "Stay sharp," Alex muttered to his team as the craft ascended through the clouds, his thoughts on the mission ahead and the fragile hope they now carried with them. Even as the threat of total annihilation loomed overhead, he knew one thing for certain: this was their last chance to save everything they had ever known, and they would fight with everything they had to take it. The journey toward the mothership was tense. Every minute felt like an eternity. The craft sped through the sky undetected for now, but the Yeet were far from blind, and the further they flew, the more Alex felt the weight of every decision pressing on him. The city below was a distant memory, now lost to the fires of war. The world they were trying to save felt so fragile, so small, as they approached the heart of the enemy's empire. Vess remained silent for most of the flight. The alien's focus was unwavering, its sharp eyes scanning every movement and every shift in the air, as if expecting the enemy to detect them at any moment. Alex could sense the same vigilance in his own squad. They were prepared for the worst, but the unknowns weighed heavily on them. All the closer they got, the more dangerous it felt to continue forward, but retreat wasn't an option. The hum of the engines filled the air as the craft soared higher and higher toward the looming shadow of the mothership. It was massive, a floating fortress that seemed to stretch on forever, its dark surface covered in alien sigils and armor plating that shimmered like liquid metal. The closer they got, the more imposing it became. The ship seemed to swallow the sky with its sheer size. "Stay focused," Alex whispered to his team, the words barely audible over the roar of the engines. "We land, we move fast, we stick to the plan." Vess nodded, its expression unreadable, its body tense as it prepared for the mission ahead. "The mothership's defenses are numerous, but there are weak points. I will guide you through, but we must be swift. Every moment we waste gives the Yeet more time to retaliate." Alex's heart was pounding in his chest as they neared the ship. The surface of the mothership was covered in turrets and weaponry that seemed to pulse with energy. The air felt charged with danger. Every second felt like it could be their last, but Alex couldn't afford to hesitate. Not now, not when the fate of Earth depended on them. The craft began to descend slowly, its movements smooth but deliberate. Vess gave the signal to prepare as they neared an opening in the ship's outer defenses, a hidden docking bay that would provide them with the element of surprise. It was their best chance to breach the mothership undetected. As the craft touched down with a soft thud, the team immediately began to disembark. Alex was the first to move, his boots hitting the alien metal with a sharp click. As he scanned the area, the docking bay was eerily quiet. No Yeet soldiers in sight, but Alex knew that wouldn't last long. Vess gestured for them to move quickly, and they followed without hesitation, slipping through the shadows and into the corridors of the mothership. The walls seemed alive with strange energy pulsing through the metal, as if the ship itself was aware of their presence. The air was thick with tension. Every footstep felt like it echoed in the vast expanse of the ship, but the team remained silent, their movements calculated and precise. They had to move quickly. The neural link system was deep inside the mothership, and every moment they lingered made them more vulnerable to detection. As they moved deeper into the ship, Alex's mind raced with thoughts of the mission ahead. They had come so far, but every step forward felt like they were walking into the jaws of a beast. The Yeet were everywhere, and if they didn't succeed in disabling the neural system, their world would fall to their alien invaders. Vess led the way, its movements swift and confident, its knowledge of the mothership's layout invaluable. But even Vess couldn't predict everything. The ship seemed to shift and change in subtle ways, as if it were alive, guiding them deeper into its heart. Then, without warning, the quiet was shattered by the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching. The team froze, their breaths held as they listened. The Yeet were near, and there was no place to hide. Alex's pulse quickened as he motioned for his team to take cover behind the nearest bulkhead, their eyes scanning the dimly lit corridor for any sign of the enemy. The footsteps grew louder, and Alex could feel the presence of the Yitrash soldiers coming closer. Their sharp senses would detect them if they didn't act fast. There was no time to wait for them to pass. "Ready yourself," Alex whispered, his voice low and steady. His team primed for action. Vess nodded and with a fluid motion drew a strange weapon from its side, an energy blade that crackled with power. As it prepared to strike, they would have to fight their way through the Yitrash soldiers if they were to reach their target in time, and there was no turning back now, no retreat. The footsteps were almost upon them, the sound of alien voices echoing down the corridor, signaling the beginning of the true fight for survival. The Yitrash soldiers rounded the corner. Just as Alex raised his rifle, his body tense, every muscle ready for the fight that was about to explode. The first soldier was the closest, its alien form towering over them. As its eyes locked onto Alex and his squad, its weapon already aimed in their direction. But before it could fire, Vess moved with a speed that was almost impossible to track. That Tauri's energy blade flashed through the air, slicing through the soldier's armor with ease in a single fluid motion. The creature fell to the ground, its screech echoing through the corridor. Alex's heart raced, but there was no time to process the kill as more Yitrash soldiers appeared from around the corner, their numbers overwhelming the team. The air was charged with the hum of alien energy weapons and the sound of battle as Alex's squad opened fire, their weapons unleashing a storm of bullets and energy blasts at the advancing enemies. The first Yitrash soldier fell to the ground as a round pierced its armor, but it wasn't enough to stop the tide of soldiers rushing toward them. Alex fired again, aiming for the weak points in their armor, but the aliens were relentless. They advanced with terrifying precision and speed. Vess moved like a shadow, cutting through the Yitrash forces with brutal efficiency. Each strike of the energy blade left another fallen warrior in its wake. Alex could hear the clash of metal and energy as Vess tore through the alien soldiers, but there were too many of them for one person to take on alone. "Fall back," Alex shouted, his voice firm, as he grabbed one of his squad mates by the arm. "We need to move forward. We can't afford to waste time here." The team quickly regrouped, pushing through the firefight and moving deeper into the ship. Alex's mind was already calculating their next steps. The goal was the neural system. They couldn't let this fight derail their mission. They had to keep moving forward. "Vess," Alex called as he motioned for the Tauri to lead the way. "Lead us to the neural link. We're almost there." Vess didn't hesitate, its eyes scanning the environment for threats as it sprinted ahead, the team following closely behind, their hearts pounding. As the sounds of the battle faded into the background, they were in enemy territory now, and the further they went, the more dangerous it became. The ship seemed to come alive around them, strange noises echoing through the walls, and the air growing colder with every step they took. As they neared their target, the atmosphere grew heavier. The walls were adorned with alien symbols and strange lights that flickered with an eerie glow. The air was thick with energy, as if the ship itself was aware of their presence. The tension was palpable. Every corner held the possibility of an ambush, and Alex could feel the weight of it all pressing on him. "We're getting close," Vess said, its voice low and steady, but there was an edge to it that Alex couldn't ignore. "The neural core is just ahead, but be prepared. This will be the most dangerous part of the mission." Alex nodded, his mind sharp and focused. There was no room for fear now. They had come too far to turn back now. They had to end this, and they had to end it now. Suddenly, the corridor ahead lit up with a harsh red light, and the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps filled the air. The Yitrash had caught up to them. Their reinforcements were here, and they were bringing everything they had. "Get ready," Alex whispered, his team falling into position as the Yitrash soldiers came into view, their massive forms blocking the path ahead, their weapons charged and ready for battle. This was it, the final confrontation with the enemy that had ravaged their world. The fight for humanity's survival would be decided in the next few moments, and there was no turning back now, no retreat, no hesitation, just one last push to stop the invaders from conquering everything they held dear. The Yitrash soldiers advanced with terrifying precision, their dark forms looming in the flickering red light of the corridor, their weapons Humming with deadly energy, Alex felt his pulse quicken. As he took up a defensive position behind a pillar of alien metal, his squad was ready, but the sheer number of enemies closing in was daunting. Vess stood beside him, its eyes narrowed in focus, the energy blade still crackling with power. "Stay sharp," Alex whispered, his voice low, as he peered around the corner of their cover. The Yeet Rush were almost on top of them now, their heady footsteps echoing down the corridor like a drumbeat of war. The enemy was relentless, but they had no choice but to fight. They had no time left to hesitate. "On my signal we move," Vess said, its voice calm yet laced with urgency. "We take down as many as we can and then proceed to the neural call. We cannot afford to be overwhelmed." Alex nodded, gripping his rifle tighter. As he prepared for the fight that was about to unfold, the air was thick with tension. Every moment seemed to stretch on forever. The Yeet Rush soldiers grew closer, and Alex's mind raced as he thought of his next move. The odds were against them, but they had no other choice than to fight with everything they had. Now Alex barked, his voice sharp and commanding, as he leaped out from cover and opened fire on the nearest Yeet Rush soldier. His rounds slammed into the creature's chest, but it barely slowed its advance. The alien retaliated with a burst of energy that scorched the air, but Alex dove to the side just in time, narrowly avoiding the blast. His squad followed his lead, moving in a coordinated pattern to take down the soldiers in their path, but the Yeet Rush was swift and brutal, their weapons cutting through the air with deadly accuracy. It was a battle of attrition, and every second counted. Vess moved like a blur through the battlefield, its energy blade flashing with lethal precision. As it sliced through the Yeet Rush ranks, the alien soldiers fell one by one as Vess's strikes cleaved through their armor. But for every one that went down, two more seemed to take their place. Alex could feel the sweat pouring down his face as he fired again and again, his rifle's recoil jarring his body. But he couldn't stop. The fight was relentless, and he had no time to think about anything else. The only thing that mattered was reaching the neural core and stopping the Yeet Rush before they destroyed everything. Another Yeet Rush soldier charged at him, its weapon raised in a brutal strike. But Alex was faster. He dove forward, knocking the alien off balance and sending it crashing to the ground. He quickly followed up with a shot to its head, ending the threat before it could rise again. Vess was still cutting through the enemy with terrifying precision, but even the Atari was starting to show signs of fatigue. The sheer number of Yeet Rush soldiers was beginning to take its toll on the team. Alex's squad was fighting hard, but the longer they stayed in combat, the more vulnerable they became. Their ammunition was running low, and the Yeet Rush were relentless. "We're almost there," Vess called over the chaos, its voice carrying through the noise of battle. "Just a little further." Alex's heart raced as they pushed forward, each step feeling like a battle in itself. Their progress was slow but steady. As they drew closer to their goal, the neural core was within reach, but the path was still lined with danger. The Yeet Rush were everywhere, their numbers seeming endless, but Alex could feel it. The moment of truth was near. They had made it this far. They couldn't let themselves falter now. "Keep moving," Alex shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos, his squad following closely behind as they surged forward through the hail of enemy fire, their eyes fixed on the prize just ahead. The battle raged on, but the end was in sight. The neural core was within their grasp, and they would stop at nothing to see it fall. The hallway ahead was lit by a pulsating red glow. As they neared the neural core, the heady sound of enemy boots reverberated in the walls, but Alex could see the entrance just beyond, a massive door adorned with alien symbols glowing faintly in the dark. The weight of the situation hung heavily on him. They were so close, but the final stretch was always the most dangerous. "Stay together," Alex ordered, his voice firm, his eyes scanning the area for threats. His squad moved into formation, keeping their weapons trained on every possible entrance. The Yeet Rush were relentless, and they knew that any second could bring another wave of attackers. Vess led the charge, its energy blade glowing brightly as it approached the massive door. Its eyes scanned the alien symbols etched across the surface. The door was reinforced with alien technology, but Alex knew that Vess had an advantage in understanding it. "We have to disable the security system before we can get inside," Vess said, its voice steady. "It will take only a moment." Alex nodded as Vess moved forward, its hands moving quickly across the alien controls. The quiet hum of energy flowing through the ship was the only sound that filled the air, tension thickening with every second. The seconds stretched on longer than expected. The Yeet Rush were closing in, and Alex's mind raced. They couldn't afford to wait much longer. Suddenly, the door hissed and began to slowly slide open with a deep rumble. The neural core was within their reach, but as the door opened, a sharp, crackling sound rang out down the corridor, the unmistakable sound of Yeet Rush soldiers charging toward them. "Prepare for contact," Alex shouted, his team quickly shifting into position as the first wave of Yeet Rush soldiers came into view, their weapons raised and charged with deadly energy. Vess stepped forward, its energy blade flashing through the air as it engaged the first soldier with lethal precision. It moved like a whirlwind, cutting through the enemy ranks, its strikes fast and clean. But the Yeet Rush didn't falter. They pressed on with brutal force, firing with precision. Alex and his squad opened fire, their rifles blasting in unison as they took down enemy after enemy, the sounds of combat filling the air as the battle intensified. But the Yeet Rush didn't give up. They were relentless. They kept coming, wave after wave. Vess fought with fury, its blade slicing through the air, but Alex could see the toll it was taking on the alien warrior. The strikes were beginning to slow, the relentless pressure from the Yeet Rush growing heavier. "We need to hurry," Alex yelled to Vess, his voice strained with urgency. Vess didn't hesitate. It moved toward the neural core's central control panel as the door slid open, fully exposing the vast chamber within. The neural core stood at the center of the room, a massive crystalline structure pulsating with otherworldly energy. It was the beating heart of the Yeet Rush invasion. Alex's heart skipped a beat as he took in the sight. The core was protected by a force field, but the system was already beginning to react to their presence, alarms blaring and flashing red across the room. The Yeet Rush soldiers outside were still fighting, but their attention was now focused on the core itself. "Get to the control panel," Alex ordered his squad as he dove behind cover to provide covering fire. The team moved quickly, but the pressure was mounting. The core was almost fully activated, and if they didn't disable it soon, the entire ship would be locked down, and Earth's last hope would be gone. Vess stood in front of the control panel, its fingers moving with calculated precision as it began to input commands, the alien language flowing from its mind into the system. The air crackled with tension as the core seemed to pulse louder each second. "They're coming," one of Alex's squad mates shouted as a new wave of Yeet Rush soldiers appeared at the far end of the chamber, their weapons aimed directly at them. Alex could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him. They had no more time. They had to stop the Yeet Rush now, or the fight would be over before it even truly began. "Vess, hurry," Alex yelled, his voice rising in desperation as he raised his rifle to take down another soldier. The air was thick with energy and the crackle of weapons as the final moments approached. The fate of Earth, hanging by a thread, the last push to save their world was just ahead. And Alex knew that no matter what happened next, they would fight until their last breath. The Yeet Rush soldiers charged forward, their weapons crackling with deadly energy as they neared the center of the chamber. But Alex's focus was entirely on Vess. That Tari's movements were rapid and precise as it worked tirelessly at the control panel, its eyes locked on the screen as it typed in sequences faster than Alex could follow. The core was almost at full capacity, now the hum of its energy increasing steadily, but Vess wasn't slowing down, not even for a moment. "Almost there," Vess muttered, its voice calm, but with an underlying tension. Alex could hear the urgency behind the words, and his heart pounded in response. The Yeet Rush were closing in too fast. Now the first of their soldiers began to fire their energy blasts at the team, and Alex's squad returned fire immediately. The sound of weapons discharging filled the air as they fought back with everything they had, but the Yeet Rush were relentless. Alex moved with practiced precision, his rifle aimed steady as he fired at the advancing enemies, each shot hitting its mark. But for every Yeet Rush he took down, two more seemed to replace them. The tide of battle was rising, and their position was becoming increasingly untenable. "Stay close," Alex shouted to his squad, But his voice barely carried over the noise of the battle. The corridor around them was alive with gunfire and alien shrieks, as Vess worked feverishly to disable the core's systems. The force field around the core was starting to flicker as the energy from the surrounding Yeet-Rush soldiers surged in an attempt to power the system back up, but Vess remained undeterred, its movements quick and methodical, each keystroke bringing them closer to the moment of truth. Alex ducked behind a pillar as another Yeet-Rush soldier fired a blast that singed the metal next to him. He could feel the heat radiating from the blast, and his heart raced with the realization that they might not make it out of here alive, but they couldn't stop, they couldn't give up now. Vess, Alex called as he took out another Yeet-Rush soldier, his rifle blazing with every shot. We need that core disabled now. Vess's eyes flickered toward him for a brief moment, and Alex saw the determination in its gaze. I'm almost there, the alien said, its voice tinged with urgency, but still composed. Another Yeet-Rush soldier appeared from the side, taking aim at Vess, but Alex was faster. He fired on instinct and watched as the alien soldier fell to the ground, its weapon sparking as it hit the floor. Cover me, Alex shouted as he moved to the other side of the chamber to provide more support to his team. The soldiers were closing in from every direction, but they had to hold on just a little longer. Vess was nearly done. Alex could feel it. It was so close, and yet the Yeet-Rush kept coming, wave after wave of soldiers rushing toward them, their weapons blasting and their war cries deafening, but they had come too far to fail now. The core's energy surged again, a blinding light filling the room as the hum reached a deepening crescendo, and then suddenly everything stopped. The lights flickered, the core's energy pulse staggered for a moment, and then went dark. The Yeet-Rush soldiers hesitated for a split second, and in that moment, Vess reached the final sequence and pressed the key that would disable the system. The entire ship seemed to shudder, and for a brief moment, Alex thought they had failed. But then the force field around the core flickered out of existence, and the room was filled with a loud mechanical whine as the neural network powering the Yeet-Rush forces went silent. The Yeet-Rush soldiers faltered, their weapons now useless, their coordination shattered. The sudden loss of their neural system left them disoriented and vulnerable, and Alex knew this was their chance. Now, Alex yelled, his voice fierce and commanding, as he led his team in a final push against the disoriented Yeet-Rush soldiers. They moved with brutal efficiency, gunning down the remaining forces in the chamber and clearing a path to the core. The battle wasn't over, but the turning point had come. The Yeet-Rush were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. Their system was broken, and for the first time in days, Alex felt the weight on his chest lift. Just a little. Good work, Vess said, its voice calm, but there was a trace of something like relief in its tone. We've given humanity a fighting chance. Alex exhaled deeply as he surveyed the battlefield around them. The core was now disabled, and the Yeet-Rush forces were disorganized and vulnerable. But there was still much to do, and the road ahead would be long. We're not done yet, Alex said, his voice steady as he looked at his squad. Let's finish this. And with that they moved forward again, their weapons still ready, their minds focused on the battle ahead, knowing that the true war was far from over. But for the first time since the invasion began, they had a chance to win it. The battle was far from over. The Yeet-Rush soldiers were reeling from the sudden loss of their neural system. But they were not broken yet. Alex could see the anger in their eyes, the desperation, as they fought to regain control of their ship, their once unshakable confidence, now replaced with a primal fury. Alex's squad pushed forward with grim determination, each of them fully aware that this was the moment they'd been fighting for. The fight for humanity's survival had reached its peak, and now there could be no mistakes, no room for hesitation. The corridor was alive with the sounds of the remaining Yeet-Rush forces regrouping as they moved in to surround the team. Alex could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he refused to let fear take hold. They had come too far to fail now. Stay focused, Alex shouted as he signaled for his team to take defensive positions around the core. We hold this ground until we're ready to move again. Vess stood by his side, its energy blade still crackling with power, as it scanned the surroundings, its alien sensors picking up every movement. The rest of the squad took up their positions, weapons at the ready, waiting for the next wave of Heat Rush soldiers to emerge. It didn't take long before they came charging from every direction, their weapons firing in unison. As they closed in on the team, Alex and his squad returned fire in a coordinated assault, each shot finding its mark. But the Heat Rush were relentless. They fought like cornered animals, with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. "Keep pushing," Alex yelled as he dropped to a knee and fired at the advancing Heat Rush soldiers, his rifle kicking with each shot. He aimed for weak points in their armor and watched as the enemy fell one by one, but for every soldier that went down, two more seemed to take their place. Vess moved like lightning, its energy blade flashing through the air as it cut down the Heat Rush with ruthless precision, its every movement a blur of deadly force. That Tari's eyes glowed with fierce resolve, but even it was beginning to slow under the pressure. "We need to move out now," Vess shouted, its voice carrying over the chaos as it hacked through the last of the advancing soldiers. "There's a shuffle dock nearby, we can make it if we're quick." Alex nodded, his mind already shifting into the next phase of the mission. The Heat Rush had regrouped and were now coming at them with renewed intensity. But they couldn't stay and fight forever. They had to get to the shuttle and get off this ship before reinforcements arrived. "Fall back," Alex ordered his team as he took one last shot at a Heat Rush soldier before retreating behind Vess. "Move quickly, we don't have time to waste." The squad fell in line behind him as they began to move toward the shuttle, the sounds of battle still echoing behind them. But the enemy was no longer their focus. They had one goal now: get to the shuttle and escape. As they navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the mothership, Alex's thoughts raced through the possible outcomes. Their mission was a success. The core was disabled, the Heat Rush forces were disorganized. But there was no guarantee of safety, yet the mothership could still launch an attack on Earth. And if they didn't leave now, they might never get the chance to finish what they started. The shuttle dock was just ahead. Alex could see the small craft waiting in the shadows, its engines humming quietly. But it was guarded by a final group of Heat Rush soldiers who had anticipated their movements. "Take cover," Alex shouted as he dove to the ground and opened fire once more. The Heat Rush soldiers were dug in, and their weapons were trained on the shuttle. The battle was about to reach its final confrontation. Vess raised its energy blade and charged at the Heat Rush soldiers, its movements a blur of lethal force as it cut through the first few enemies with brutal efficiency. But the Heat Rush responded with vicious counterattacks, their energy weapons flaring as they tried to keep Vess at bay. "Move in," Alex barked as he followed up behind Vess and took out another Heat Rush soldier, his rifle spitting bullets at the advancing enemy. The shuttle dock was now within reach, but the last wave of Heat Rush soldiers was standing between them and their escape. The fight for survival was almost over, but Alex knew that one last push was all that separated them from victory or defeat, and the world's fate hung on their every move. The final push was underway as Alex's squad advanced toward the shuttle, their weapons firing in synchronized rhythm. With the desperate rhythm of the battle, the Heat Rush soldiers were fierce and unyielding, but their once unbroken resolve had begun to crack. The loss of their neural core was taking its toll, and their disorganization was evident. Their shots were less precise, and their movements slower than before. Vess led the charge, its energy blades slashing through the air with deadly grace as it cleaved through the Heat Rush soldiers, one after another, each strike powered by the rage of 1,000 battles fought across the stars. Alex could see the toll it was taking on the alien warrior. The Xari was relentless, but it was not invincible, and even its strengths seemed to waver under the weight of the battle. "Push forward," Alex shouted as he fired another round into an approaching Heat Rush soldier, its form crumpling under the impact. His team responded instantly, their formation shifting into place as they moved together toward the shuttle, their goal now within reach. But the final obstacle still stood between them and their escape. The shuttle dock was only a few meters away, but the Heat Rush soldiers guarding it were holding their ground with everything they had left, their weapons flaring. As they fired at the advancing team, Alex's rifle spit bullets in response as his team moved in a steady arc around the enemy using the environment to their advantage. Stay tight. Alex called out, his voice steady but laced with urgency as they moved together toward the shuttle. Every second counted now. Their escape was within sight. But the Yeet Rash were not about to let them lead without one last fight. Vest surged forward with a roar, its energy blade cutting through the air as it clashed with the Yeet Rash soldiers. The sounds of metal meeting energy rang out as the two forces collided. But the aliens were outmatched now. They were scattered and disoriented, their coordination shattered by the loss of their neural connection. Alex kept firing his rifle with precision, his eyes scanning for the next target. The shuttle was so close now, he could almost feel the cold metal of its hull against his fingers. But they weren't there yet. One of his squad mates went down, a Yeet Rash energy blast catching him off guard and sending him sprawling to the floor. But Alex didn't hesitate. He dove forward, pulling the injured soldier to safety and returning fire with brutal efficiency, every shot hitting its mark and sending the enemy scattering. "Get him to the shuttle," Alex ordered, his voice sharp as he passed the fallen soldier to another teammate. The Yeet Rash were still fighting fiercely, but Alex knew they couldn't waste any more time. The shuttle dock was only a few meters away now, the final stretch, but the Yeet Rash weren't giving up. They fought with everything they had, but it was too late. A tide of battle had already turned. The neural core was gone, and the Yeet Rash were no longer the unstoppable force they had once been. Vest let out a final battle cry as it cleaved through the last of the Yeet Rash soldiers. With a brutal swing of its energy blade, the battlefield fell silent for a brief moment as the remaining enemies crumpled to the floor, and Alex knew this was their chance. "Go, go, go!" Alex shouted as he sprinted toward the shuttle, the team following close behind, their movements quick and coordinated as they boarded the craft and sealed the door behind them. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and with a sudden jolt, they lifted off the ground, leaving the shattered remnants of the Yeet Rash mothership behind them, the weight of their victory still sinking in. But there was no time to celebrate. The war was far from over. Alex looked around at his squad, each of them breathing heavily, their faces covered in dirt and blood. But there was something else in their eyes, something that hadn't been there before, a flicker of hope. The Yeet Rash might have lost the battle today, but the war was still raging, and humanity's fight for survival was just beginning. "We've won this round," Alex said, his voice steady as he looked out the shuttle's viewport at the distant stars. "But it's not over yet, not by a long shot." And with that, the shuttle soared into the depths of space, heading for Earth and the uncertain future that awaited them. But they had a fighting chance now, and that was all they needed to keep pushing forward.